Blog Talk Radio.
We are controlling transmission. If we wish to make it louder, we will bring up the volume.
All right, folks, thanks for tuning in to Otter Limits Radio. This is your host, Steve Long. For those of you who have listened in before, thanks for tuning back in again. And for any new listeners, I'm glad you decided to tune in tonight. We're going to have a lot of fun tonight. RJ, how are you? Hey, how's it going?
This is RJ.
Hey, RJ, thanks for calling in. Glad to have you.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate you and your listeners.
Great. So, well, let's just jump right into things. How about you tell us why you decided to run for governor of Oklahoma?
Well, it's the same reason I decided to run for Congress, president, and that's to continue to fight for freedom and liberty and to keep that movement pressing on and, try to stand up for those principles for all Oklahomans. I mean, this is a statewide race, so my influence will be kind of zeroed in and focused here in the state of Oklahoma. But you and I both know that there are times when governors can kind of set the pace nationally, and hopefully if we can get a few governors that are willing to stand up and defend liberty in their own home states, then maybe we can start a trend.
It does seem like, to a certain extent, the tide, so to speak, of liberty seems to be turning in a more positive direction. Would you agree with that?
Well, I don't know if it's turning yet, but I know we're gaining ground. And, you're always gaining ground before you turn a tide. But, we've got a few liberty candidates elected to the Congress now, and we've got a few more running for different offices. Everybody talks about, people talk about Rand Paul for running for president in 2016 as if it's a foregone conclusion. And, libertarian's no longer a bad word. The press the press used to refer to Ron Paul as a libertarian Republican as a pejorative. And now they refer to that as Rand Paul, and he doesn't hide from it, and nobody else. I mean, you see, you hear the Washington, I think it was Times or Post come out talking about, libertarian Democrats, a movement in search of a leader. I mean, so that used to be a bad word people used to try to label us with, and I just don't think it is anymore. Ron Paul has explained to the nation what it means to be a libertarian, that it simply means to believe in the Constitution and to want to stand up for liberty. And I don't think it's the bad word it used to be, or at least, perceived that way. So, and now more and more of our candidates are stepping out. We've got business leaders that are being recognized for their political leanings towards libertarianism. So we'll see where it goes. And my goal is to at least, to continue that trend and, help us turn that corner. Because I think if we can get one, and it doesn't matter what party, but if we can get one freedom fighter, one libertarian governor elected in the nation, then we can get a little closer to that.
It gives hope to libertarians. They see one major libertarian elected official, and it gives them hope to, maybe we can get a libertarian elected in our state.
Well, and it's more than just it's more than just hope too, because it gives us an opportunity to put the principles of freedom in practice in government, in the daily operation of the state. And here in Oklahoma, there's of course, as a constitutional libertarian first and foremost, I keep all political philosophy, including my own, within the scope of the consent to be governed, which at the federal level is represented by the U.S. Constitution. Here in Oklahoma, it's represented by the Oklahoma Constitution. So if we can put those principles into practice, even when we're administrating the daily operation of the state, and see Oklahoma, really, bump up its economic prosperity, really improve upon its liberty quotient and so forth, well, then we will have a resume to build on as a message.
Good. So let me ask you, if you were elected as governor, what would be, say, your number one priority, and how would you address it?
Well, my number one priority is going to be to eliminate as much liberty-infringing legislation as possible. Now, I know I'm not the legislature, but I can work with the legislature to attempt to repeal as much liberty-infringing legislation as possible. I saw a news article about a city in Colorado that's doing that, where they're trying to repeal one oppressive city ordinance every month that they feel is a counter to liberty. And I'm probably going to be a little bit more aggressive than that. I want to try to repeal and get rid of as much liberty-infringing legislation that's on the books, and to block as much would be coming down the pike, after the fact. And then, of course, right behind that, for me, one of the ways to provide as much immediate respite from government tyranny as possible is to end the drug war. And as governor of Oklahoma, the drug war will stop at our border. And I will get as many nonviolent offenders for possession and use of controlled substance out of the prison system as possible. And that's directly granting people back their liberty. You see, they're locked up, they're oppressed, they're tyrannized. In some cases we have some, perfect example of here in Oklahoma, as a matter of fact, we had the case of a single mother who's locked up for 10 years for having a few joints. Ridiculous. Okay,
yeah.
So we're going to, not just talk the talk. We're going to walk the walk. We're going to put people out of bondage right back, give them their freedom back, and stop that drug war at the border. And those are two big things for me, is to restore people's freedom and liberty in the most. And of course, it's not all going to be done through, the governor's pardon. The last election, there were some adjustments to the governor's pardon capability here in Oklahoma. So I may have to have a talk with my legal advisors and find out exactly how much power we have there. But the governor has that pulpit, that ability to reach out to the public and really wrap their arms around big topics like jury nullification. And so if I don't have the full power of pardon like I'm thinking that I do to handle some of these issues with the drug war, another way to deal with it is to make sure that we get state-approved and funded literature into the courthouses that says to the jurors, and no longer in fear of the judge hammering down on them or trying to take it away or trying to, no, this is the state of Oklahoma saying that every juror that sits in a court in Oklahoma is going to know when they sit in there that they can nullify. And I will make sure that happens. I mean, regardless of what happens with the fallout on how much wiggle room I'll have on pardons, regardless of that being good or bad, one of the top things I'm going to make sure that I do is make sure that every juror that sits in the Oklahoma court knows before they sit in there and before they get sworn into the jury that they have the power to nullify that law.
Okay. So another
you can see that would have bigger ramifications than even just the drug war. I mean, that would get into to dealing with bad gun laws. That would get into dealing with other liberty infringing laws that someone's being brought up on charges for, and all of a sudden here comes the jury doing exactly what Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, James Madison, and John Jay argued for, which is to judge the law itself. Right, so whenever a case comes up and a person's standing trial, it's not just that person on trial, it's the law as well. Right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you can see that would have far-reaching implications well beyond just the drug war, but that would probably be the biggest immediate impact.
Good. Another concern on people's minds, and I'm sure yours too. If you were elected as governor, what would your thoughts be on fixing? That's the best word I can come up with. Fixing the education system in Oklahoma.
Well, the education system, from my perspective, the education system does need a lot of help, and the help that it needs is streamlining itself between the bureaucracy between the principal and the state superintendent. We have got way too much bureaucracy in between the principals of the schools and the state superintendent. And I think that's gobbling up a huge portion of the money that's intended by the legislature to go into the classrooms. Now, a lot of folks that listen to this may or may not be aware of the Oklahoma Constitution, but I've been through it several times. And whether or not you are a proponent of public education, the fact of the matter is here in Oklahoma, public education is part of our Constitution. And as the governor, I'm going to have to swear to uphold and defend that Constitution and execute it faithfully execute as best I can. So regardless of what any of the listeners' opinion of public education may be, I'm going to have that duty to make sure that our public education here in Oklahoma is delivered in accordance with the Constitution. But I'm saying right now that I'm going to do so in the most efficient manner possible, and to ensure that as much of the resources that's being allocated by the legislature in accordance with the Constitution that's going to education is going into the classroom. We're going to start tracking more closely how much of that funding on the dollar is actually making it to the student, and we're going to gauge our success every year by we seeing that number go up. Whatever that number is now. And I'll go ahead and, say now that I don't have that figure at the top of my head, but whatever that number is now, we're going to attempt to increase it as much as we can over the 4 to 8 years that I will be in office, and to where, most of that funding is going to the students and directly to the classroom and the teachers. One thing also that I had in mind was we're talking about improving the efficiency of the system and weeding out as much of the superfluous bureaucracy there above the principal level. But one thing that we can also do in education delivery itself is modernize it as well. And I will be looking at initiatives for tablets to be into the classroom for the teachers, for the students. That will be a way for us to help reduce the cost over time of paper book purchases, of the transport of those books, the storage of those books, the maintenance of those books. It would be a reduction in paper resources that we have to use, for the children to have their textbooks. Instead, they will be on their tablets. So we're looking, sometimes there may be something that out there that some people say, okay, well, this particular government program may be counter to a libertarian concept, but the fact of the matter is it's in our Constitution, our Oklahoma Constitution. So as governor, what I'm going to have to do is find the most efficient way to deliver it as possible, and that's what you see me talking about here.
Right. I mean, I totally agree with you that I think there's too much bureaucracy in education and less, the control of education should be, in my opinion, at the lowest local level possible.
And I agree with that, but I also agree. I totally agree with that, but I also agree that since the Oklahoma taxpayer is footing the bill, that we do have an obligation to be reporting back to them how our students are doing. And over the years, there's been a lot of back and forth about standardized testing and how much of the time that takes and whether or not the students are being taught the test and so on and so forth. Well, that's another reason why I've been looking at the digital classroom, tablet-based curriculums, and so forth, because what will allow us to do there is we can streamline the delivery process, of those curriculums. We can see, we can build data and flow charts to see, how the students are doing from all the way from the lecture all the way to the exam. succeed, because all of that stuff, when you're taking exams and doing things like this through your tablet, that data is all being recorded, and then we can see, without the need of a standardized test, we can see how the students are doing in real time. You see what I'm saying? So hopefully what we can wind up doing is eliminating some of the superfluous activity. Once again, more expenses on these standardized tests, right? And actually get a better picture of where our students are in real time, as opposed to at the end of the year, and any of those folks out there talking about, we're worried about the teachers are just teaching the students to the test, or test the students or whatever. That kind of goes away when you're actually seeing the results from the classroom day to day, week to week. You're able to watch the chart and the course line and see where the students really are.
Well, right. And effectively what you're doing is you are, rather than throwing more money at the problem, you are using the resources that we already have more efficiently.
That's correct. That's what I'm trying to get at right there.
Yeah. So, because there's a lot of people out there just say, we need more, we need more money for education. And the reality is we don't need more money. Throwing money at the problem isn't going to fix the problem. I mean, the federal government has shown that time and time again. They've failed at every turn. So we need to use the money that we have and use it more efficiently. So, yeah, I kind of agree with you there. Now, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but I want to hear it anyway. What are your thoughts on Oklahoma's ballot access laws?
Well, as you know, I think they're absolutely archaic and ridiculous and tyrannical. I mean, to artificially be keeping candidates and parties off of the Oklahoma ballot it strikes at the very heart of the legitimacy of our electoral process. Because when the people don't really have a choice of the candidates that represent them, then you can't say that there is a representative government, because they've been forced into an artificial selection process that didn't even include from the very beginning all the way to the end any candidates whatsoever that may have represented their viewpoints. And it's not like that, the viewpoints are way outside the mainstream. I mean, as we talked about at the start of the segment here, libertarianism is growing rapidly across the country, coming back into the public eye. Of course, we all know that libertarianism was the driving political philosophy for, more than 100 years after the founding of the republic. So now here we see it coming, kind of getting its own, getting a second wind, coming back into the public view. And, we've got a very prominent libertarian Republican being talked about running for president, behind his father who's done the same thing. So it's not like this is, some, fringe shoestring element out there. I mean, you have very, very salient political philosophy out there being kept from the voters here in states like Oklahoma. I know there's some others out there with some pretty bad ballot access laws, but we're just talking about Oklahoma right now. And, it's so bad, in fact, that to try to get a candidate on the ballot for governor in 2014 was absolutely impossible for them. I mean, it was bad enough trying to get a presidential candidate on when the number of signatures needed was based on the previous gubernatorial election from 2 years ago, and now if you're going to base it on the presidential numbers to get a governor, it's not even possible. I mean, it is, but it would take so much money, it's beyond reach. And of course, the spirit of the ballot access laws has to simply be, to prevent frivolous candidates from getting on the ballot. Well, come on. You don't need to make a party spend, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 to prove they're not frivolous. Okay, that is way over the top. That is not narrowly tailored to achieve the important governmental job that it's trying to get done with the ballot access law. So you can bet, as governor, one of the things I'm going to tackle is getting that 1970s law repealed that had all those, and of course was increased there a few decades later. We're going to get that repealed and get that reduced down to a level to where any party that's represented nationally will be able to get out there, get their couple thousand signatures, whatever it may be, and get their candidates on the ballot. This is ridiculous, and I'm going to fight to get it lowered to the the lowest I can. As a matter of fact, if I had my way, it wouldn't be that at all. It would not be thousands of signatures at all. But I'm going to have to see what I can get out the legislature. I'm going to fight to get it down to the lowest possible level, so that way, any of our other national parties out there who have been artificially kept off the Oklahoma ballot for the last 20 years will no longer be done that way.
Great. Sounds like you got some good ideas. Do you have other thoughts you want to leave with us?
What's that?
Do you have any other thoughts that you want to leave with us? Anything else you'd like the listeners to know?
Well, I'd like to let them know that this is a very real possibility. This is something that we can actually win this race. I've been looking at the numbers before we even got involved, and there's straight down the board in 2012 there was 30%. It was 70-30 Republican to Democrat, and so a lot of people have said, "RJ, this is crazy. You ought to just stay in the Republican Party, and that way you can actually win a race, or just win. If you win a primary, you could just win the race, and so forth. Red state in the union, and all this other stuff, right?" Well,
right.
I don't agree. I don't agree because the Oklahoma Republican Party has gotten so out of hand that even when the Ron Paul people all won all the delegate seats for Florida, and the Republican Party is so corrupt here that they overturned that election and then sent their own delegates to Florida anyway. So, I mean, what's the point of even staying there? I mean, even when you win the votes, you don't win. It's over at that point. It's not even an option for us over there now because of that. So when you look at, is this state really as red as the election results show? I don't think it is, because our voter registration numbers are still at parity. They're still right at 50%. So why are the Republicans winning 70-30? It's because the Democrats are not seeing any good, solid, either Libertarian Democrat or Conservative Democrat candidates come up there, so they're losing 20% of their vote over to the Republican. So, I shared this with the chairman. I said, "Sir, if we can get a Libertarian Democrat out here on the ticket, then we might be able to. We would hold on to our 30% base that's voting Democrat every election. We could win back our 20% that's been voting for Republicans because they don't really care for a socialist candidate. They want a conservative Democrat. We can win those 20% back, and then we all know here in Oklahoma just how big a rift there is between the Ron Paul supporters and Mary Fallin. That number is 11%. Folks, that comes up to 61%. This race is easily winnable by a Libertarian Democrat who has the Ron Paul people at its back, okay? So we could win this race. We could win the state of Oklahoma for freedom and liberty. This is not just an educational campaign to get people's attention or to be talking about liberty issues. This is a race that we can win. And I'm hoping that people that hear this, all over the country will go to my website, go to my Facebook page there, make a donation in this fight for liberty. And let me add this real quick. I've already run into some folks in the Democrat side that say, "Oh, well, he ran as a Republican back in 2010. He's been an independent. He's is he really a Democrat or whatnot?" And the thing I'd like to say to my new constituents in the Democrat Party is this: if I was really about all that, I would just stay in the Republican Party. Okay? Their star is on the ascendancy in Oklahoma. They're the ones winning all the races at 70%, and all the conventional wisdom, even advice I've received from lifetime Democrats that I know that teach up at the law school have said, "RJ, you probably ought to just stay in the Republican Party if you want to get elected." All right? So the Democrat Party is down. It's flat on its back right now. It doesn't have any congressional seats, Senate seats. It doesn't have governor, lieutenant governor. If I was really just an opportunist, I would just stay in the Republican Party and try to go that vector, right?
Yeah,
but that's
definitely.
So you see what I'm saying? Like, so why am I going to swim upstream here? Why am I going to go ahead and switch over to the Democrat Party when conventional wisdom would say, okay, you need to stay Republican side. They're the ones winning 70% in your state right now. Well, because in 2010 and again in 2012, I can tell you, the open and on its face religious bigotry, racism, you name it, is so ingrained in the Republican Party that I just cannot stomach it. I cannot do it. I had no idea how bad it was going to be until I actually got out on the campaign trail in 2010 and saw some of the things that I saw from both party activist leaders, elected leaders, as well as the constituencies, some of the constituents out there in the base. And as I was making my decision over the last year about which way to move forward and studying the parties very closely and having, discussions with folks on both sides, I really just had to make the decision that I cannot be aligned with that party that is that openly religiously bigoted and racist, and I just can't. I can't do it. I can't represent their viewpoints anymore. And in Oklahoma, it's blue or red, it's Democrat or Republican, and so I look over at the Democrat Party and I say, well, at least I've got some folks over here that will listen to reason and are folks that are not being religiously biased and bigoted. They're not being racist. I can at least make a cogent argument for the issues and the causes of liberty, and they'll listen and not be swayed by that religious intolerance or that racial bias.
Awesome. Well, I'm really looking forward to seeing how this race turns out, and looking forward to the race itself and the journey ahead that you have. Really looking forward to seeing how that journey turns out. And we'd really like to have you on the show again later on in the campaign season, if you don't mind coming back.
Certainly. You know how to get a hold of me. You got my number and you got my Facebook email, so anytime you want me to come on the show, I'm happy to do it.
All right. And real quick, can you tell my listeners what your website is?
That's kind of funny, actually. Right now, my website URL is still rjharris2012.com. I know that's kind of silly because it's 2013 and we're running a race for 2014. But, the search engine optimization is so good for that old website that when we made the conversion, we still kept the rjharris2012.com, but it is being updated. Like, we're taking it in steps. I got my web developer who worked on my congressional campaign in 2010 is busy getting the website rebuilt yet. So it's going to be one of two things. We're in a flux right now. It's rjharris2012.com right now, but it's going to be switching to voteharris.org. Either one of them should work, either now or in the future. Those two things, rjharris2012.com or voteharris.org. No, we're getting rid of the dates, getting the dates out of my URLs because those things are so difficult to deal with. And then, of course, you can always find me at facebook.com/RJ Harris Official. That's facebook.com/RJ Harris Official. Any of those venues will get you to our websites.
Great. And if you folks out there listening didn't get a chance to write that down, I'm going to put a link on it or link to it from my website. So just go to my website, otterlimits.us, and you can find the link there as well. But RJ, it was good having you on the show. I enjoyed having you on. And anyway, so we just got through talking to RJ Harris. He is running for governor of Oklahoma. We are definitely looking forward to seeing how things work out with him.
Blog Talk Radio.